Yes. Welcome back, boys and girls of all ages, to another Pickled Dragon unscripted,
Have you been drinking, Matt?
always. Uh, so there is, and we of course have the wonderful, always amazing Dracoya with us, who is popping all the signs, right?
I don't know why.
Um, so there's been a lot of to do about Kyle Brink getting either the axe or leaving Wizards of the Coast. It's not exactly clear which one. And lots of people have been fired and left WotC in the last year. So it's not really what we want to talk about today, but I do think it's funny after Kyle pretty fly for a white guy Brink. If you guys remember that song from the 90s, pretty fly for a white guy. Yeah, okay. Uh, but he's the guy that famously said last year, right after the OGL crisis, where he was supposed to be going around trying to tamp down the negative press that they got from the OGL crisis. And he had the incredible intelligence and wherewithal and um, you know, insight to think it would be a good idea to say white guys can't leave the hobby fast enough
Yeah.
on a podcast. And I guess mission accomplished. He's fulfilled his own mission and is no longer with WotC. Whether he still plays D&D, I don't know. Who cares? But
I hope not. But
Um, I, I, I think that the point of this video is, so what's next for D&D? I think that's really what really matters here. I know that people have been laughing and giggling about Kyle Brink, but you know,
so he's being replaced by a woman named Jess Lanzillo. Did I say that correctly? I think
I
so.
think so.
So Jess Lanzillo, she's replacing him as VP of Creative, I think. Is that what it was?
Well, I think that
VP?
was her old
Oh,
position.
that was her old position.
Yeah.
So, but all the reports are saying that she's very much an activist. So, the things that we have been talking about in our last few videos, fully expect that this is going to become probably a larger issue.
Or at least
I
continue as is. Status
probably
quo. Yeah.
now, I don't know how much authority and power she's going to have in her new position or how much she had at her last position. But we did look on her LinkedIn page, and it does look like she was the VP creative for Magic the Gathering. Now, I'm not 100% sure how much authority she had, but I will say that I and a lot of other people were not happy with a lot of the changes that was going on with Magic the Gathering. It almost became like Warhammer. It became too expensive to keep up with. It seemed like every other week there was some kind of new pack, there was some kind of new rule, and it just started feeling less of a passion nerd project and more of a how can we keep selling useless shit that you're gonna buy? And maybe that's more Hasbro and less her. I'm not sure, but Hasbro does have a long reputation for sitting on IPs. Matt, you had mentioned that, they've been sitting on Transformers and G.I. Joe, and they didn't even try to revitalize this. So it kind of feels like what's about to happen, in my opinion, what's about to happen is that Hasbro is going to do to D&D what they did to these other things. They are going to siphon off all the life energy from Dungeons and Dragons, make sure they can squeeze every single little last drop of pennies that they can, and then they're going to toss its corpse aside and walk away and still sit on the IP so no one can even do anything differently.
Yeah. So not so much walk away, but just drag the corpse behind them as they walk away.
Yeah, not let
I
anyone
mean,
else have fun.
you could still find Transformers toys or GI Joe toys, but there's really been very little done to
Yeah.
make it a new or interesting IP again. It's just it is what it is. I know there's still comic books here and there, and that's a whole nother source that we're not even going to touch
Yeah.
because there's plenty of YouTube channels you can go out there for the comic book drama on that stuff. But there's really those IPs are the toy industry is slowly dying as kids are more interested in phones and video games these days than anything else,
Yeah.
and it shows in Hasbro sales. So the real question is what's next for D&D? I mean, there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that the new core books will sell like crazy. They every time a new edition comes out, even people who aren't even going to play the new edition, just fans of D&D, people who are curious about the rule set, they're going to buy at least the player's handbook. And if you look at 5e sales, the number one selling book um, was the player's handbook. It was not even close. Like the next closest, I mean, it was. I think that the player's handbook sold something like 2 million copies, and I think
Wow.
that was just the Amazon sales as well. So whatever you might think about the new 5.5 or 1 D&D, those core books will probably make their bottom line look pretty good at least the first year.
Plus, sales increase every single time Stranger Things comes out. Like every single time Strangers has a season, D&D sales skyrocket. But then, the concern is that they're about to come out with their last season. So then what?
Yeah, and you add to that Critical Role is moving away from D&D.
Oh,
And
right.
yeah, and I don't think there was any doubt that Critical Role and Stranger Things were a large reason why D&D 5e had such a huge following. Some people call it the tourists, even people who never played D&D before but were curious because they saw it on Stranger Things, went and bought the player's handbook.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, COVID also helps that because you had Roll
for
20 and
sure, for
people were
sure.
stuck at home.
And but once Critical Role has cut ties with D&D completely and Stranger Things is gone, I think D&D sales are going to suffer for it.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been trending downward since Tasha's released. And some say this is due to the growing activist influence in the material or whatever the reason. I just think it was plain bad writing. I mean, if you go through some of the books that came out following Tasha's, Strixhaven and their first stab at Spelljammer and so forth, it's just bad writing. And I mean, the Dragonlance book was decent, but and we're not going to like share all the sales figures here. Dungeon Craft, Professor Dungeon Master, he did a great video where he broke down
All
WotC's
the sales.
sales. Yeah, you really need to go check out Dungeon Craft. That's his channel
And
for
I
the
know that
video.
the Candlekeep one, Matt, we had spoken about Candlekeep before.
Bad.
Yeah.
BAD. Bad.
Yeah.
Uh, but just go check out that video if you want to know about sales. You could see them going further and further into the toilet where, they're selling 40,000 copies of a release, which is just, I mean, that's not going to get the job done
No.
for a growing IP. It's not it. I mean, all indications though, all indications are that WotC is pushing D&D to their online VTT platform, which we have a few. I just grabbed a few images of, and I think most people have seen this, but I just want to share a few of the images here, if it'll let me. Doink. So to me, the first thing that comes to my mind when I see these things is, yes, it's pretty cool. Like, you're going to be able to cast spells, and there's going to be little poofs and flashes of light and whatnot. And they've recreated the miniatures on the board. That you're able to, there's an Ankeg and there's some people fighting it. You're going to move your miniatures around, and it's going to have very pretty graphics in terms of a turn-based game for sure.
But then, okay, so first thing I would ask is how restrictive is it? Because I don't know about everyone else, but for me, the best part of D&D is the tomfoolery involved.
Yeah, the the that's a very good question, because um there's a lot of questions floating around out there in regards to the VTT, because the rumors are that they really want to turn, these are rumors, take it for what you will, but they want to turn D&D into a Monopoly Go style game. That was Hasbro's real moneymaker, where I think
Monopoly.
they made $1 billion off Monopoly Go and all the little microtransactions that they built into that game.
Is it?
And we've heard that they want to limit the print run of the books and market those to just collectors.
See, that's ridiculous.
So, there seems to be an effort to push people to this VTT, but when I look at it, yes, it's cool and everything, but there are MMOs with more flexibility and more or better graphics than that. And for to elaborate on what you asked, Jacoy, about flexibility, um, you know, the trope is, and it's very true, the DM could prepare for hours for what the
Oh, yeah.
players are going to do next, and they'll not do any of it. So what
Yeah.
happens if the players go in and the players go in and they don't do any of the things that
The
uh
DM planned and
yeah,
actually put into this little program, right? And that's kind of my question. Like, is it gonna be? Won't it just be like a bad video game at that point?
that's
But
what I think.
I, and then you also have to think of the amount of DMs. So I know that we found out that they were looking at creating the AI DMs, which okay, that's going to be interesting, but we'll have to see how that goes. I mean, on one hand, I know there is a shortage of DMs, but on the other hand, I'm not sure about this AI DM system, so we would have to see. And then
Yeah, and
one go
go
on,
ahead,
sorry.
go ahead and
Oh,
finish your.
my last big point that I'm really concerned about is I'm sure I don't know if everyone knows this, but I'm a miniature painter. That's how I, stayed in D&D. That's not how I started, but that's how I got into painting. Dracoya Minis is my Instagram handle if anyone's curious, but I'm a really big miniature painter. I have won awards, I've gone into competitions, I travel for this. I've met so many people through my hobby, and I love painting miniatures, and nothing makes me happier when I play D&D to see that I have spent like 40 hours on this terrifying monster, and my DM just brings it out, and everyone at the table goes, "Oh no." That tells me I've done my job right as an artist. It's so satisfying. And turning everything online is gonna, I feel like it might take everything away from me.
Yeah, and an AI, I don't want to. I've been thinking about this AI DM thing, and even more, my brain comes back to, why not just play an MMO? Like AI DM, they're not going to have the flexibility for a character to decide to go down, the left hallway instead of the right when everything's planned for the right. Um,
My thoughts exactly.
I just don't know like what their plan is for the future, but I don't know that D&D, because to me D&D's always been an interpersonal game between individuals. Everyone I talk to that plays online, anecdotal obviously, but I've talked to quite a few people who play online games, and they all say, if I was close enough to somebody where I could play face to face, that is what I would prefer, but I'm
Yeah.
not. So I have to do it this way. So how many of those people are out there? Will it be enough for the Monopoly D&D Go to get the microtransactions where people can play and make a ton of money? Maybe, maybe there'll be people out there who can do that or enjoy doing that, but I don't know. So, I think if we wrap this up, I guess the question, the thing predicting the future, I think in the near future, the next year or two, I think that D&D's prospects are fairly bright. I think
You
the new
think?
core books are going to like blow up and people are going to buy them and they're going to be curious. There's going to be a bunch of them that sell. I'll probably end up buying it just because
Yeah, I know.
I want to see, I want to see what the rules are and everything.
Yeah,
But long term, the loss of Critical Role and Stranger Things, with tourists as they're called that kind of dip a toe into D&D because they're into the Stranger Things crowd, they'll eventually phase out and be gone. And that I think is when we'll see the impact of alienating the former core customer. All the people that they've attacked that used to keep the first four editions afloat, right? And
right.
that they've actively attacked here in the last few years. So it'll come down to the VTT. If the VTT has enough people and enough microtransactions, I think that D&D will be around. It just won't be recognizable.
Microtransactions. Ugh.
Yes.
Don't even get me started. Well, uh, I guess that's it. If you guys have any other thoughts and opinions, please put them in the comments down below. Or if you guys have any other modules that you would like us to take a look at, feel free to send them our way. Until next time, come back and have another round on us.
Woohoo!